TV.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Doctor Who Too Hot for TV. We are the podcast that looks at all things Doctor Who Extended Universe, from NAs to EDAs, unmade scripts to short trips, from the fully licensed to the dubious copyright infringement stories you might find on the murky depths of the internet. We cover it all. Today, I am joined by one half of the All in Time and Space podcast, Mark Cockram. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me on.
It's wonderful to have you here. We've already had Ian from your podcast on, so nice. It's nice to have the full duo.
Well, you know, there's only one way to go once you've had Ian, and that's unfortunately it's down. But we'll try and make the best of it.
We will indeed. So every time I have a new guest on the show, I always like to find out how they became a Doctor Who fan, because it helps us. We're picking things from various different eras, but sometimes it sort of sets the scenes of what people are into, what doctors they like, what spin-off media they like. So how did you become a Doctor Who fan?
Oh, it's a very, very long story because I'm a very old person. So I'll be 50 next year. So my sort of gateway into Doctor Who was as a 6-year-old. Oh, maybe even probably slightly earlier. I can remember little kind of snatches in my memory of The Power of Kroll and City of Death. But the first story I watched from start to end is quite a highly regarded story within fandom. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's called The Horns of Nimon.
I know it very well.
Yeah.
It's a favourite of mine, but
me too.
That's either going to pull you in for life or make you never watch the show again.
Yeah, it's I've had a checkered history with that story. So obviously I was completely enthralled by it as a 6-year-old. I think I was the perfect target audience for that particular season.
Yeah.
And then obviously as you get older and you're a teenager, you start to worry about, what people think of the stuff that you like, and it suddenly became a very not very cool thing to like. So that particular story I kind of fell out of love with for a while, and then as you get older, you start to appreciate that actually, if you like it, you just like it, and who cares what other people think? I don't know. I just seem to think more recently there's been almost like a renaissance for that story. I see more and more people coming out and saying they actually really like it.
Yeah, it feels like that's definitely the case, and it's certainly got its fans out there. I think it's one of these things of, for a while it was held up of Doctor Who looking cheap and being very silly, but when you're 40 odd years removed from it, you can just sort of take it as exactly what it is, as a great bit of fun, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's as camp as Christmas. I mean, there's some great sci-fi ideas in there. The whole thing with the maze is very clever. So yeah, I love it. So that was my kind of introduction to it, and I just became hooked from that point on. So I watched it through till, I want to say, season 24.
Right.
And season 24, obviously, again, being a teenager, I found it quite cringy, to the point where I had to actually go to a separate room from the rest of the family to watch it. It was so cringe to watch. I'd almost kind of given up on it, but I saw the trailers for Remembrance.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that actually looks quite good. So I'll give it a go. And I was absolutely blown away by how good it was.
Yeah.
So that kind of brought me back into the fold again.
Fantastic.
And obviously things went south a few years later.
Yes.
Or not, because obviously on your podcast you celebrate what happened in and around the programme. So for you, I guess it's probably a golden period.
Oh, it's the glory days. No, I'd much rather have Doctor Who on television, but Doctor Who was doing things at that time that it couldn't do on TV. And I don't just mean bigger stories. It's this unlicensed almost, even though a lot of it was licensed. Just to push the boundary.
I think it's just a time of incredible creativity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's a testament to how great the show was that people cared enough to want to keep it going all that time when there wasn't really anything forthcoming.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your involvement, or maybe lack of involvement, I don't know, with Doctor Who fandom. When did you realise you kind of took it beyond a TV show and started exploring other avenues, shall we say?
I mean, as a kid, when I first started watching, it was just part of the zeitgeist. It was this thing that everyone watched. You know, you go to the playground the next day at school and everyone would be talking about it. I don't know if you'd necessarily call that the fandom as such, because I tend to think of fandom as perhaps a much more hardcore love and appreciation of something.
A hardcore podcasting group of people on the internet.
Well, yeah. So I flirted with bulletin boards for a while, and that I found I fell out of love with quite quickly because much like some social media outlets we could mention, the quality of discourse varies dramatically depending on who you speak to. And then sort of early 2000s, I started listening to podcasts and really enjoyed them. I listened to virtually every Doctor Who podcast just because you were listening and trying to find a sort of untouchable thing that gets you excited about a particular show, and you just kind of latch on to. It's usually the presenters or the format in some way, but I found there were a few of those I really, really liked, and I got so enthused that for some unbelievable reason, I bought myself a USB microphone and thought, well, I'll have a go at that. So I started up a podcast called Nerdology, which is like a pop culture podcast. So we cover everything from books to movies, TV, music, theatre, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And because of my love of Doctor Who podcasts, virtually all my guests were Doctor Who podcasters. So in a way, I was offering them a kind of a respite from having to talk about Doctor Who all the time, so they could come on and talk about whatever they wanted, which was quite therapeutic, I think, for them.
Yeah.
So I started that back in 2012, and it's been sort of sporadic. I was also part of the team that put out the Blue Box podcast, which was a podcast, Doctor Who podcast from Starburst magazine. But then in the sort of beginning of 2020, something quite big happened. I don't know if you can remember. We had this thing called COVID-19.
That doesn't sound familiar.
No? So yeah, it meant that it gave me a fresh perspective on what I wanted to do, certainly fandom-wise. And one thing that had been kind of ticking away in the back of my brain was I wanted to watch all of the show in broadcast order. And my wife, bless her, she's long-suffering, obviously, because she's married to me. But she quite likes New Who, and she will watch some old Doctor Who. She's not completely averse to watching it, but there's no way I could make her sit through all of that. So I just thought, well, why not do a podcast? And then I figured, well, who could I wrangle into doing it with me? So the first name that sprang to mind was Ian, who you've had on the show already. So I just popped him a message and said, do you fancy doing it? And he was like, yeah, sure. And that was how we got started. So we watch all the episodes, regardless of whether they're existing or not, which can be challenging sometimes. Yeah. And then each episode will invite a guest. So it kind of helps to keep it fresh, because I don't think many people would want to listen to me banging on for an hour or so every episode. So we have different people coming in each time. They have different perspectives, perhaps new, fresh takes on a show that we all might have seen many, many times, and they might be able to get something else completely different from it. So I quite like that. It's a nice part of the show, and it just helps to keep it fresh.
It's a fantastic podcast, and if there's anybody out there that hasn't listened to it, I would suggest you go and search it out wherever you get your podcast. But it's very insightful, very amusing, and it's a fantastic podcast.
Too hot for TV.
When I asked you on the podcast, I said, what do you want to cover? And you picked two audio stories, the first of which we're going to cover is Night Thoughts by Edward Young, which was released in February of 2006. These were kind of the glory days of Doctor Who. We were on the eve of Series 2 of New Doctor Who, and the news at the time was a change in the running order for Series 2 was announced, with Stephen Fry's episode being bumped to Series 3.
Oh yeah, that was a great story, wasn't it? I love that one.
Yeah, one of the best. But don't worry, because a replacement script by Matthew Graham was announced, which became the much-loved classic Fear Her.
Well, I mean, as we were saying before, everyone's got their favourites, and I'm sure to someone out there it is their favourite story.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I saw something on Twitter the other day, and somebody was like, the Battle of Ranskoor Av Kolos, I think I've said that right, is my favourite story, and they were saying it unironically, so every bit of Doctor Who is someone's favourite.
Yeah.
Also at the time, Nick Briggs was unsurprisingly cast as the Cybermen in Series 2 of Doctor Who, because I guess...
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it wasn't necessarily a anything that they would go for him. The director might have had their favourite voice artist or something that they wanted to use.
I think he was obviously following in the footsteps of Roy Skelton, because Roy Skelton was a Cyberman. He kind of did it the other way around. He was a Cyberman in The 10th Planet, and then he became a voice of the Daleks after that. So do you think Nick Briggs is going to become Zippy at some point?
We can only hope. We can only hope. Also at the time, the launch of a brand new fortnightly Doctor Who magazine, Doctor Who Adventures, which was the sort of magazine comic for kids, was announced. What a time to be alive that was.
I know, those halcyon days where everyone seemed to love Doctor Who.
I know. It lasted for the majority of the Tennant era. Mm-hmm. For 5 or 6 years, Doctor Who was absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, that was a crazy time. It was really bizarre, sort of coming at it from my perspective, where it was this sort of thing that I had friends who I kind of knew liked it, but it wasn't like this big thing where everyone got together and had a chat about it or whatever. It was just something that I tended to watch as quite a solitary thing. Yeah. And then it got massive. So like literally you'd be walking into work and people would be talking about it, people who previously had no interest in it whatsoever, and it would be this really big deal.
I remember when Bad Wolf had just broadcast, and all of a sudden I got texts from people going, "Oh my God, there's thousands of Daleks in next week's, just like we always imagined it." And I was like, you hated Doctor Who 3 months ago. You used to take the piss out of me constantly for liking this silly show that was never going to come back. And now you're talking about armies of Daleks, but it was great times. It was a kind of a bittersweet pill at that time, though, because we'd had Eccleston come in and be fantastic, and then he left. And then Tennant had hit the ground running with the Christmas invasion. But, you know, I guess there was still a slight trepidation of whether people would take to the new Doctor for a full series, I suppose.
I think because the news had dropped so early that Eccleston was going to leave, I think it was after the second episode or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
It was really early on. So I guess everyone was primed for it to a degree. So I think in a weird way that probably kind of helped.
Yeah.
And also the fact that David Tennant had been in a production of Casanova, which I think was another Russell T Davies thing, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
So he'd been in that, which had kind of pushed him more into the public gaze. I think it was very much teed up for him to come in and just absolutely knock it out of the park.
And we sit here now on the eve of David Tennant once again coming into the part.
Yeah, how bizarre.
I know.
Never would have thought that would happen.
Other releases at the time, BBC Books released the Past Doctor adventure Atom Bomb Blues featuring the 7th Doctor. Now, I didn't realise that the Past Doctor book range was carrying on. Like, I know it finished around this time, but it carried on through to the second series of New Doctor Who.
Yeah, I'd kind of always assumed it had finished in the 90s.
And then the BBC was still peddling Doctor Who in tins, which was all the rage in the 90s, with the audiobooks of the Daleks and the Web Planet in a shiny biscuit tin in compact discs. Big Finish also released Cybermen Fear and Bernie Summerfield, The Lost Museum. Also out from BBC Books was the 40th anniversary book, The Legend Continues, which was hastily rewritten to include a bit on the new series. And the comic strip running was The Betrothal of Sontar, featuring the 10th Doctor and Rose. Any of those releases stick out to you as particularly memorable? Have you experienced them? Never heard of them?
I think The Legend Continues. I'm sure I picked that up, but I could be wrong. It's obviously left a lasting impression on me because I can remember absolutely nothing about it.
It was badly timed for the 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
Because it was released and then they announced the new series, so this is obviously why this reissue happened. But the first issue was immediately out of date because everybody knew there was another series coming.
It's a bit like The Writer's Tale.
Yeah.
They had The Writer's Tale come out and then obviously Tennant left shortly after, so they did an extended version which made the original one a bit sort of obsolete.
I would have binned my original, but I went to a signing in Birmingham and got Russell T Davies, and it was very fun. I just remember Russell T Davies and Benjamin Cook sat there signing it, and bless Benjamin Cook, people were constantly getting photos with Russell T Davies and just standing in front of him.
Not a one wanted. Yeah, I guess you got to kind of expect that, haven't you? But yeah, poor guy.
Too hot for TV.
Now, normally at this point, I do a brief summary of the plot, but this one is so convoluted and complicated. I wonder if between us we can quite describe exactly the events that take place.
Oh God, well, good luck.
So they arrive in this forest
Yes.
on this island. There's a bunch of people that go there every 13 years, and they're scientists sort of doing research.
They're all from the local university. aren't they?
Yeah, and there's a weird kid that lives with them who has a stuffed rabbit that she talks through due to past traumas. No one really knows who her mom and dad are, and something horrible happened there years ago.
No one wants to talk about it. There's little references to something having happened, but you're gradually getting fed these little bits of information as you go through the story.
And then I think we realised that one day 2 sisters showed up. Is that correct?
Yes. So you got 2 daughters and the mother, and the one daughter was exposed to this deadly poison. They've been doing experiments on this island many, many years before, and she'd been exposed to this deadly poison, and one of the first signs that you've got it is that you go blind, and the assembled scientists thought that it would be the kind thing to do to put her out of her misery rather than let her suffer and die a very horrible, painful death.
Classic scientists.
It's classic scientists.
So they kill her, essentially, don't they?
Yeah, which doesn't go down too well with the mum.
Yeah.
Has to be said. She's not chuffed at all.
That would be enough story for me, almost. Making this a bit of a spooky, but ultimately not sci-fi or horror-y thing. But then, what happens to the mum?
So the mum loses her shit.
Yes.
And she can't face what's happened, so she decides to kill herself. And she drowns herself in the lake, I think, am I right? in saying
Yeah,
that?
and which leaves just the little girl left who goes in and
Yes.
out of orphanages and care her whole life.
Yeah.
And then, eventually finds a home with these scientists every now and then. But it doesn't stop there either, does it?
No, it just gets, it's like, imagine Poirot on LSD. It's bizarre, isn't it? You think, how many more twists can they throw in?
There's enough story in here for 4 different Doctor Who stories, let alone one.
Yeah.
And then it turns out they're working on some sort of time machine or machine to send messages back in
Yeah.
time so they can stop their past selves from...
Yeah, so just by pure luck, the prototype for this machine was in the very room when they were euthanizing the poor girl.
Yeah, of course.
Which was, pure happenstance.
I know.
So one of them convinces the Doctor to help them send this message back in time so that it'll play back, and then it will stop them from what they think is an act of kindness and try and save the girl's life.
But the Major, in all his wisdom, even the old version of him, is like, that sounds like me. I'm going to ignore me. I probably can't be trusted.
He's an arsehole, isn't
He's
he?
an arsehole. But he's sort of a villain. He's the villain of the piece, but kind of a villain of
Yeah.
necessity. And it's only towards the end where it goes even more batshit. And then he's like, actually, I want to be the first person to kill somebody and then bring them back to life.
Yeah, sort of Frankenstein syndrome.
Yeah, and then the body of the dead...
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's another completely bat poop crazy idea. So they figured that instead of, they might be able to correct the mistake they made. So rather than burying the poor girl in a grave, they decide to embalm her and put her inside a stuffed bear.
Of course, where else would you...
Because that's what you do. Yeah. I mean, they do go to great lengths to explain that one of the characters is obsessed with taxidermy. So, I suppose they have set it up to a degree, but that is a very, very strange choice.
It is. And then, obviously, as they try and bring this body back to life, or the Major does, the bear starts walking about a little bit. And then, just for the fuck of it, it's also revealed that the girl's dad has been there the entire time. Which member of the team was it?
It's O'Neill,
O'Neill.
because the girl, she was very young at the time that the original thing happened. So she got put through, like you say, the care system, and they changed her name. So he had no idea that girl was his daughter.
Never went looking for her, though.
No.
Never went... Didn't I used...
Not really Father of the Year.
Didn't I used to have a daughter? Oh, I can't find her.
Yeah. I mean, to lose one is bad, but to lose 2, that's just, very careless.
And then it's all sort of resolved. I can't really remember how it resolved.
So the Doctor, when he realises that the Major is just a bit of a shit and he's not going to keep his word, he then goes back in time in the TARDIS to put things right.
Of course he does, yeah.
He decides he's going to have to kill this girl to stop the sort of zombified version of her coming to life and attacking everyone.
Yeah.
And then he reveals at the end that he couldn't actually go through with it.
And the end, essentially.
Well, yeah, it's all wrapped up, and the TARDIS team all go off, and the Major is he the only one left, or you've got O'Neill and the little girl. So the Major's the only one left of the evil scientists, and they've handcuffed him to the table.
Yes.
So he can't get away, and they're waiting for the police to turn up. So the Doctor and co disappear in the TARDIS, and he starts shouting to someone coming up the stairs, saying, "Well, you took your time, bloody police." And it turns out it's the zombified girl that he killed.
Of course, which the father and the alive daughter are going to have terrible trouble explaining to the police how somebody they handcuffed to a radiator or whatever is now dead.
With his eyes cut out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a complicated, convoluted plot.
Isn't it, Jess?
I'm glad we managed to eke that out between us.
I'm surprised we did, frankly. I'm giving you a virtual high five.
I'm not sure if anybody's still listening, but we've certainly managed. I think it's an important part of the process, though, this review. I wouldn't do that on normal things, but just trying to put together what exactly happened.
Too hot for TV.
This was the point post new series where all of a sudden Big Finish was a little less relevant. Was this a release that you picked up at the time or came to later?
My relationship with Big Finish has been a bit sort of hit and miss.
Right.
I certainly wasn't getting them as soon as they came out. I think I remember getting Spare Parts because everyone had been saying how amazing Spare Parts was.
Yeah.
And I bought that from... There used to be a website called Play.com.
I remember it well. Do you remember they used to pay tiny pennies for you to review things on there when it first started?
Yeah. So I would buy the occasional one from there because not having masses of money, they seemed to be cheaper than buying it direct from Big Finish at the time. Yeah, occasionally they would drop in trailers for new and upcoming stories, and I think I must have heard the trailer for it on another release, which eludes me right now. But so I thought, well, that sounds quite spooky and interesting, so I thought I'd give it a go.
I think I listened to sort of every main range release of Big Finish up until the new series came back.
Okay.
And then I sort of tailed away, which leads into this. By this point, I'd gone off to university, but my brother was still picking up the odd release. But I was at university spending all my money on Stella Artois and cigarettes, So I went back to Birmingham one day and I used to hop on the coach and I saw him and he was like, "You need to listen to this one. This one's really good." So I put it in my bag, and then on the coach back late one night, I think it was a Sunday evening, at about 10 o'clock at night, I just popped it in my compact disc player, and I can vividly remember listening to this very creepy... This is going to sound... At the time, I almost felt a little bit ashamed that a Doctor Who audio could scare me that much on a bus full of people on the way home. I couldn't tell you where I was when I listened to most Big Finish, but this one sticks out, so I was very pleased when you decided to cover this one.
Yeah, it must have stuck in my memory because, as you say, it's quite an affecting story. It's a really disconcerting listen. I kind of felt like it was perhaps leaning into the darker edge you got on some of those New Adventures books. I don't know if that was something you also picked up on.
I think it's a nice mix of the McCoy era and the New Adventures. But what I like about this story in particular is the Doctor is one step ahead of everybody, but he's very much uncovering the plot along with the audience and with everybody else. It's not like a lot of the New Adventures where he seems to know what's going on from the very start, and he's sort of I don't like the Seventh Doctor when he is this arch manipulator. I like it when he's one step ahead, so I really tapped into that. But yeah, it's got a New Adventures vibe with a sort of season 26, a bit Ghostlight, a bit Fenric.
So I was reading that this was originally going to be a story for the then cancelled season 27.
So yes, I mean, yes and no.
Maybe not in the form that it's arrived from Big Finish, but
nobody wrote any scripts for season 27, but there were ideas being thrown around, and this was certainly one that was considered. Now, it's written by Edward Young, but Edward Young does not exist.
Is he related to David Agnew?
Exactly. Nobody knows. It's never been revealed who wrote this. All we know is that it's somebody who was working in television enough to be able to pitch an idea to the Doctor Who production office at the time. So I don't know, I have no idea who it could be, but maybe it's an RTD or a Moffat or a Paul Cornell, or maybe it's just somebody like Cartmel or Ian Levine. I mean, I don't think this has got the hallmarks of his writing over it. It could be someone like Andrew Cartmel or Ben Aronovich, who, for whatever reason, when this was put out, just couldn't put their name on it. Maybe they were signed up to a publishing contract, or, or they didn't want their agent to know that it was them, but it's never been revealed, which I think is a fantastic mystery.
That just adds to the mystery of the story, doesn't it?
In terms of Big Finish mysteries, there's that, and the fact that Jason Haig-Ellery has admitted that he has written some stories under a pseudonym, but he will never say who it is. If anybody knows, write in.
Yes. We'd like to know.
Could you see this on television in autumn of 1990, all shot on outside broadcast videotape, or do you think it's better conserved here in audio?
I think, certainly the way it's described, I think it's a bit gruesome for tea time on a Saturday night.
Well, it would have been midweek, 6, 7 o'clock at that time. That's when Doctor Who was going out in the late 80s, I think. But even so, it's still sort of meant for kids.
I don't know. It's interesting to think about how they would have changed the show had it not been taken off the air. I think certainly the way we get it here from Big Finish, it's not perfect by any means. No. I think some of the acting is a bit up and down.
I would describe some of the acting as audio acting from a certain era.
Yeah. You got Bernard Kay in there, who is an absolute legend from the TV series. Yeah, he plays his character in he's got this very unusual way of speaking. Whether that's to add to the general air of weirdness, I don't know. But
he's a very frantic. He's a frantic arsehole. That's the best way I can put it.
Now, why didn't they put that on the sleeve liner notes? That would have sold way more.
I think he's playing it that way. I think it's a choice, and I think it works. Mm-hmm. Looking at the other cast members, you have Joanna McCallum as the Bursar, as somebody who's got a fairly lengthy TV career that includes things like Poirot, All Creatures Great and Small, Law and Order, Doctors, the classics. Dr. O'Neill is played by Andrew Forbes.
I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah, he played Omril in the television story False, and has a screen career where he's done everything from Supergran to Bronson.
Wow.
And Sue is played by Lizzie Hopley, done loads of Big Finish, loads.
I was going to say, she's still going now, isn't she, in Big Finish?
And she was also in Doctor Who The Infinite Quest and the most recent TV version of Day of the Triffids, then Holby City and Luther, blah, blah, blah.
When she does that voice for Mr. Happy, the rabbit, for some reason I was getting flashbacks to Control from Ghostlight. Yeah.
It is very similar. It's this thing, like she's playing quite a young character.
Yeah.
So she's acting down. And even though I don't think it's a fully convincing performance as like a kid, I still buy it. Like I still think it's a creepy enough performance.
Yeah.
We've also got in here the Deacon, played by Anne Beach, who has a huge career dating back to 1957, including the City of the Dead, Steptoe and Son, and Notting Hill. And Joe Hartley is the character, played by Duncan Duff, who played the newsreader in the Doctor Who television series Rise of the Cybermen, has also been The Crown, Waterloo Road, and Skins. So even though there are some iffy bits of acting, these are all people that they've been about. They're not just the mates of the director. Like, I feel a little bit like when Big Finish first started, it was very much who do we know that can act. Whereas these are all jobbing actors.
Yeah, you look at the cast on paper there; they look really good. And also, I think this was the first time I'd heard Philip Olivier in a Doctor Who. Any
favourite performances out of the guest cast before we move on to the regulars?
I quite like the Bursar.
Yeah.
There's something about the Bursar that the way the character was portrayed, it came across really well, for me anyway.
And the Bursar's the one that's hiding this great secret. I mean, they're all hiding great secrets. They've all got their own agendas and they're all hiding secrets and trying to amend for past issues. But the Bursar's the one that's the famous author as well, right?
Yes, yeah. It's clever because their characters always referred to as the Bursar.
Yeah.
And then they refer to this other person who's this, very much vaunted scientific genius, and they refer to them by name, but you don't make that connection until later that they are one and the same.
The story's full of twists and turns like that, and we'll talk a little bit more about the script in a minute, but you mentioned Philip Olivier as Hex. So what are your thoughts on Hex? For anybody that doesn't know, Hex is an audio-only companion for the Seventh Doctor. Big Finish had given each of the Doctors sort of a new companion each.
Yeah.
like now, they've all got 30 different companions.
Some of them cross over as well, and it's all a bit,
Exactly, but it felt quite revolutionary at the time that they were adding their own companions into the mix to existing Doctors.
I thought it was a really great addition to the cast. I think I'd seen him in Hollyoaks and that kind of stuff before, and he's quite a likeable character. I think he just slots in so well as part of that team.
He does, and I like that the character's a nurse and they put his medical knowledge to use.
Yeah.
I always find this thing of like, you listen to an audio and it fits in so well, and then you realise actually he's 20 years younger than Sophie Aldred, even though they're supposed to be the same age. But that's the magic of audio.
Yeah, no, I think they're a great little unit.
And, of course, we've got Sophie Aldred as Ace. How do you think she fares in this particular story?
I mean, I love Sophie Aldred as a person. I think she's amazing. I think her mileage varies in Big Finish, it has to be said, for me anyway. I think she's helped by having someone to bounce off like Hex, so it's not just her and Sylvester. It's
like she's stepped straight out of 1989 season 26 and hits the ground running there. But you find with especially this era of Big Finish, there's a certain style of acting that was okay on television in the 80s that you just don't get anymore, and there's this weird crossover where there's no Doctor Who of the 90s where acting styles change. So while Sophie Aldred sits perfectly well on 1980s television, when you're in 2006, 2007, it's a different technique, shall we say. And obviously, as part of that unit, we have the Seventh Doctor, played by Sylvester McCoy.
Yes.
And I think he's bloody brilliant here. I don't know how you feel about him.
Yes, again, I think he's another one where the mileage varies quite a lot, depending on the script he's given. But I think this plays to his strengths. I like him when he's kind of dialed it back a bit. I don't find him quite so convincing when he's got to really lose his temper and go crazy. I just like him when he's quite mildly brooding and just quite contained. I think he works really well that way.
And he's definitely in that brooding mode here. As I said before, he's sort of one step ahead, but not the great manipulator.
Yeah.
And he's in on the adventure too. And he gets some cracking 80s style dialogue, he goes,
yeah, there are a few good one-liners.
He says, like, the tears of the child, the greatest water power known to man, remember that. And then someone goes, oh, someone's got cancer, and he goes, cancer of the soul. And it's that is very Battlefield, Curse of Fenrir.
My favourite was one of the characters says, so Doctor, it's to be a battle of the minds. And he says, so good of you to come unarmed.
Yeah, that's another corker. So let's talk a little bit more about our mysterious author, Edward Young, and the story he delivers here. What do you think of the whole world he creates here and how the story plays out?
I think it's got a lot of things that I really like, and it harkens back to me to that kind of crossover period between Hinchcliffe and Graham Williams. Back in the old series, where something like Image of the Fendal.
I have that note right here that it's very much like that.
You've got that kind of folk horror, very spooky. You've got the remote location, which is always a bit of a staple of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that it's this remote island. I think it's off the coast of Scotland, I think.
It's a remote island that they let loose some terrible chemicals on many years ago.
That's right. Which comes into play in the story.
Of course.
Yeah, so I like that. I mean, there are bits of the story that are absolutely batshit crazy.
Yes, it is.
I'm sure you'll come to that. But it's really bizarre, but it does conjure up these really grim images in your mind.
Yeah.
So it's quite effective in that way.
One of the buzzwords I noted down was essentially imagery, which is a weird thing for an audio, but there's such vivid images of, like, horrible images as well, painted with it, and it's atmospheric right from the start. There's very few that capture such a tone and an atmosphere right from the start and keep it.
I think the sound design really helps with that as well. It's just...
Absolutely. If I had one criticism of this, and it's a Big Finish sort of classic criticism, and indeed one you can level at a lot of radio drama, there's a bit too much description of, like, people doing things.
Yeah.
Hex finds a dead body in a fridge, and he goes, oh, there's a dead body in a fridge. Oh, its eyes have been gouged out.
Yeah.
And someone gets injected with a hypodermic needle, and somebody goes, you pricked me. Blasted hypodermic. And... But I can forgive those things because it's such a good story, and it is difficult to write audio. And
see, if they really wanted to capture the spirit of Ace, who got pricked by the hypodermic, she would have called them a bilge bag before she passed out.
So it has quite a complicated plot.
Does it? Hell. I mean, I hadn't listened to this for quite a long time. And I listened to it again today in preparation for this. And I was like, I really wish I hadn't requested this one now because my head is going around in circles. But it does kind of come together towards the end and they do kind of explain it. Although there are a few weird, I don't know if it's just they didn't quite pick up on it when they were editing the script. But there's one or two little clunkers there that don't make an awful lot of sense.
Anything in particular?
Well, towards the end, they have a flashback to what happens to the poor girl Edie, who's going to be euthanized because they think she's been exposed to this really deadly poison. And one of the characters says, "Oh, there's no way I can perform this operation. I'm just not qualified enough." I'm thinking, you're going to kill her. I mean, yeah, it seems a bit odd to me, but maybe that's just me showing my ignorance of euthanasia.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it seemed a strange one.
I do think the reveals are delivered perfectly over these 4 episodes. It feels just the right length.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially the classic Doctor Who format and that Big Finish have moved away from now, you're like, 4 episodes and 4 32 minutes, so it's 2 hours. You look at the runtime and go, oh, this is going to be a slog. But I was never bored.
It goes past pretty quickly. No. There's enough going on that your attention doesn't wander. It can't because there's so much going on.
And I like that it's not your conventional monster. You know, you've got there's one of the teams roaming around in a hoodie to start with, setting things up and recording the Doctor's voice. Then you've got the creepy kid with the thing, the angry major, and then a corpse in a bear suit, you know. And if that isn't a list of classic Doctor Who villains, I don't know what is. It also has some fantastic cliffhangers, I think. And it's very hard to pull off those cliffhangers on audio.
There's one that I think was a very exciting cliffhanger. And let's be fair, a lot of the cliffhangers in original Doctor Who on TV, the resolution often doesn't live up to the excitement of the cliffhanger itself.
Yeah.
And there's one in particular that I thought, God, how are they going to get out of that?
Is it Ace getting her foot caught in a bear trap?
Yeah.
And it turns out it was just a dressing gown that got caught. And the reason you couldn't move is because she had hypothermia. But it doesn't matter because it's a great cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the setup is great.
And that...
Very exciting.
The first episode's cliffhanger as well. It's all done with the sound design, really. You know, it's whistling and it's heavy breathing and it's the Doctor's voice being recorded.
Something so simple, but it works so effectively.
Yeah, and it's perfect for audio. Even the one where they dig up the coffin and there's just a scream works for me. And the fact that we talked a little bit about the ending, about how the TARDIS team leave and then the Major gets his comeuppance, which usually it's the other way around, so it almost feels like it's ending on a cliffhanger as well.
Yeah, I like that. It's got a call back to a classic horror trope, isn't it?
Yeah.
That whole thing of, it's all over, and then, ta-da, the monster comes back just for one final go.
It's a little bit more than the Remembrance of the Daleks, you know, we did good, didn't we? Which is how a lot of the Seventh Doctor stuff tends to end.
Yeah.
So we've kind of pulled apart the plot. We've talked about the cast. We talked about the writer. Is there anything else you particularly want to say on this story?
I just think it's a really engaging, I suppose fun. Fun is a strange word to use for something that is so dark and creepy, but it is. I enjoyed it a lot. It's not necessarily the best Big Finish I've heard, but it is a very entertaining Big Finish.
Yeah, it's atmospheric, spooky. The performances are largely on the whole pretty good. And it's a nice little snapshot of Big Finish where they're suddenly not the most important bit of Doctor Who like they were a couple of years before that.
Yeah.
But they're still doing good stuff, and it's before they become the machine that they are now, where you've got 1 or 2 releases a month, and you know you're hoping that they're going to be big hits every time. So, Night Thoughts. We rate things in only 2 ways on this podcast. Is it a clanger or a banger?
I'm going to say it's a banger.
It is a banger. I wholeheartedly agree.
Too hot for TV.
Next up, we're looking at Dead Air from BBC Audio by James Goss. This was released on the 4th of March 2010. Doctor Who Series 5 was months away. We just said goodbye to David Tennant at Christmas. Again, it's a time of all change for Doctor Who. Both of these stories are at an era where there's always that little bit of trepidation in Doctor Who fans of, will the public take to the new Doctor? And it was a resounding yes. But the news at the time, it was announced that Simon Nye and Gareth, don't mention his name, Roberts, were writing for the next series of Doctor Who. And the episode titles for the first 3 episodes were announced, which were The 11th Hour, The Beast Below, and Victory of the Daleks. Murray Gold was announced as returning to Doctor Who, because I guess there was always a possibility that new showrunner new composer. Guest stars for the series were announced as Arthur Darvill appearing in episode 1, which I think is interesting that he was only billed as that, considering he became...
he's a massive part of that era.
And then Sophie Okonedo is appearing in an up-and-coming episode, along with Bill Patterson, Ian McNeice, and Tony Curran. It was also announced that BBC Wales had planned to build a brand new TV production centre for Doctor Who and Casualty. Doctor Who was voted the best drama series 5th year in a row at the NTAs, and Big Finish announced that they were bringing back the Mara, while a little-known comedian, Toby Haydock, was touring his award-winning show, Moths Ate My Doctor Who Scarf.
Whatever happened to him?
Exactly. Just cash it in. Knew nothing about Doctor Who, that guy.
Yeah, new fan.
Again, as we said, it's a new era of Doctor Who. Matt Smith's about to hit. What are your sort of memories of Doctor Who at that time and being a fan?
I remember the year of specials not necessarily being as special as they might have been, it's fair to say, with one or two exceptions. I really like Waters of Mars. I thought that was a great story.
Yes.
As much as I love David Tennant, I think by the time he'd made his 30th goodbye at the end of time, I was ready to move on and check out this new guy.
I remember that trailer dropping for Series 5, and it just feeling like a massive step up in terms of the production values and the look of the show, and being like...
So much so that I pinched it for the start of our podcast.
Of course. Because I think there's a little bit in the Eccleston and Tennant era of Doctor Who being slightly behind the look of, say, at big American shows and even sort of the high-end dramas in England. And that's because it wasn't in high def yet. They were still learning how to make the show. So the moment you get into the Moffat era, it suddenly feels like, oh no, we're into like, this is like a big proper drama series now, and it looks the part.
It does seem to have kicked up another gear,
Exactly.
doesn't it?
And, you know, I still feel like people have different opinions on Jodie's era, but I still think the show looks the best it's ever looked, in terms of the way it's shot, the way that the colouring's done, the way the effects are done, things like that. Like, I was amazed at the trailer for Legend of the Sea Devils. I was slightly less enamoured with the episode, but I still enjoyed it.
I don't think you're a massive outlier there, Dylan.
The thing is, I mean, again, digressing, I do feel like that story was an hour long, and then at the last minute they had to edit it down, and that's why it doesn't make an awful lot of sense. But that's for another podcast. Also at the time, the comic strip running was The Crimson Hand, which was the final 10th Doctor comic strip to appear in the pages of Doctor Who magazine, and the last to feature companion Magenta Price, who was DWM comics only. The DVD out at the time was The Mask of Mandragora. BBC Books had just released The Torchwood Encyclopedia by Gary Russell, and John Barrowman had just released his autobiography, I Am What I Am. We know, John. We know.
We know. Anyway, moving on.
The first run of the Nest Cottage audios from BBC Audios had just completed their run. The Hornet's Nest by Paul Mars, featuring Tom Baker returning as the Fourth Doctor, albeit in a very kooky universe.
It's a very strange setup, that one, isn't it?
It is.
I'm sure Tom Baker loved doing them because he just gets to be completely off the walls.
Absolutely bonkers, as usual. Meanwhile, Big Finish had just put out the 5th Doctor and Nyssa story, Plague of the Daleks, and the 8th Doctor and Lucy Miller story, Death in Blackpool. Any of those stick out to you? Any strong feelings about any of those stories? Or
dipped in and out of the 8th Doctor. I like the idea that they thought they'd run it like a new series season. Yeah. And getting Sheridan Smith, I mean, that is an absolute humdinger of a bit of casting, isn't it? When you consider what she went on to do.
Absolutely.
And yeah, those Hornet's Nest and Serpent's Quest and all the other ests that they did, the Paul Mars ones, are just absolutely banana pants.
Yeah.
Crazy, aren't they?
Very, very odd stories. People say a lot of the time, oh, it's not really Doctor Who, it's just more sort of Tom Baker being weird. But I think I can believe that the Fourth Doctor settles down in a cottage for a bit. The bit that stretches credulity for me is the fact that he's just best mates with Mike Yates.
That I think is probably stretching things. Yeah, I do like Mrs. Wibsey. She's entertaining. She's
great. But my understanding is that it was written for Nick Courtney, but he was too ill to take on the part, unfortunately.
That's a shame.
But there we go.
Too hot for TV.
The Doctor arrives on a ship that houses a pirate radio station in the late 1960s. There he meets Layla and reveals he is tracking a weapon called the Hush, which is a ball of vicious noise. To trap it, he has destroyed the boat's transmitter. While Layla takes this in her stride, the other two people on the boat, Jasper and Tomo, are more sceptical. Even when Jasper is killed by the creature, Tomo takes the news with a pinch of salt. The Doctor and Layla are separated by the Hush, but the Doctor temporarily traps it on a tape loop. In order to survive the night, they decide to stay in the studio and play music all night. Any silence will mean the Hush is present. In the morning, the Doctor plans to sink the ship. Suddenly, Tomo vanishes, killed by the Hush. The Doctor and Layla sit in the storm, waiting for morning. The Doctor realises the Hush chose Radio Bravo, not for its safety, but as a trap to distract the Doctor, but keep him alive. He also realises that the Hush has been inside Layla all along, in an attempt to make the Doctor take it aboard the TARDIS and out into the universe. However, the Doctor has been secretly using his sonic screwdriver to trap the Hush, bit by bit, on a piece of tape, which he sinks in the ship.
Too hot for TV.
So this was a BBC audio exclusive. They'd been doing audiobooks, readings of the new series novels they've been doing.
Yeah.
And these ones they're not books. They only exist as audiobooks.
And they're designed specifically with the audio medium in mind.
Oh, all of them that way, or just this particular one?
I must admit, I listened to quite a lot of the audiobooks of the novels just because I'm really lazy with a very poor attention span. So having someone read it to me rather than having to read it myself is just the way it seems to be.
I mean, why not?
Well, yeah, but I haven't listened to that many. But this one, I just remember reading the synopsis at the time and thinking, oh, that sounds quite interesting. And I snapped it up when it first came out, and it lodged itself into my brain as, wow, I think this is one of the best uses of audio ever.
I completely agree, and I can see why it lodged in your brain. But these didn't register on my radar at the time at all. So when you suggested this, it's always exciting when someone suggests something I've never listened to or read before. So I was quite excited to experience it, and I took your advice. And last night I sat down, poured myself a glass of red wine, turned the lights off, and just sat there for an hour or so.
Headphones on,
and took in this story. And I have to say, I was pretty bloody impressed.
Yeah, it's incredible when you think it's just David Tennant sitting in a booth.
Yes.
Reading the script. You get swept away by it. It's quite short compared to the average Big Finish. I think it's just over an hour.
Yes, it's an hour and 8 minutes to be precise.
Yeah.
And it flies by, and it's a fantastic little story. As you said, it's narrated by David Tennant, which even at this point I think is a bit of a catch getting him. You would expect John Barrowman or Noel Clarke or Freeman Agyeman or somebody to be doing these stories. And we get David Tennant, which I think adds to how good it is, essentially, that you get the Doctor performing it and narrating it. So what do you think of how he delivers this story?
I think he's brilliant. I mentioned before with the specials that I'd become a little bit jaded with seeing the 10th Doctor.
Yeah.
But this, I think, is just wonderful.
Exactly. He's a fantastic narrator.
Yeah.
And it's told from the first person point of view of the Doctor. And the whole thing is the Doctor telling this story as a warning, much the same way as Sleep No More would do.
Kind of found footage.
Yeah, exactly. Found audio reels or whatever. And I love the kind of, you'll get the Doctor sort of delivering, oh, I'm the Doctor, I'm really good in the dark sort of thing. And then it'll switch back to David Tennant's narration version. And there's sort of a solemn retrospectiveness, because as the narrator, he knows what's about to happen and that people are going to die. And it just shows what a fantastic performer and what a brilliant Doctor David Tennant was.
Yeah.
Despite the last couple of stories being a bit like, okay, we're ready for the new guy.
And he voices all the extra characters as well, so they all have their own sort of unique voices too.
Yes, so we get Tennant does a Liverpudlian accent, which to play Layla, who is our pseudo companion here.
Yeah,
and I think it's a cracking little performance. I mean, obviously, he hasn't got the tones of a female, but I think he does a great job.
Yeah,
and I particularly like that it ends with the Doctor talking to himself as the Hush, which are the audio monster here, essentially, that feed off audio.
It's a hangover from the Time War, as I read it to be anyway.
Yeah, me too. A weapon that feeds on sound and has become sort of sentient. It was written by James Goss. Now, James Goss is a huge part of the Doctor Who Extended Universe.
Yes,
he's had a hand in everything from BBC Audio's novels, books, Big Finish as a writer, and then his producing credits stretch back to Death Comes to Time and all the BBC online webcasts, and a bunch of the DVD documentaries he's done. Doctor Who, Torchwood, Bernie Summerfield. Like, he's done so much Torchwood.
What has he got to do to get a gig on the TV?
I know. Listening to this, I was like, he is one of those spin-off writers that I think should be given an episode at some point. He's up there with Nick Briggs in terms of the sheer volume of stuff that he's written. Like, he's one of the most prolific writers.
It takes a lot of nerve to, because he did the adaptation of City of Death, didn't he?
Of course, yes.
And that's revered by a lot of people because it's a Douglas Adams story. Well, Douglas and Graham Williams and who's the original author?
Was it David Fisher? No, didn't it?
Yes, David Fisher.
David
Fisher, that's right, yeah. So he did the original story and then they changed it quite a bit. It's like a sacred text, so to take that on and adapt it for the novel was, you're potentially opening yourself up for a lot of angry peeps on the internet going mental, but I think he did an amazing job of that.
I've not read it, but I believe it was well received.
Yeah, it's really good. And I think he co-write the Scratchman novel with Tom Baker as well.
Of course, yes. That's another one that I have yet to consume.
Oh, if you're going to do it, of course, me being me, I've got the audio version. It's read by Tom Baker.
Okay.
And it's brilliant. I love it.
That might be one for a couple of long walks.
Definitely.
So here, he's written this story, as we said, specifically for the audio format, which I think is a fantastic ruse. So it's set on this pirate radio station floating at sea, which I think is a cracking setting.
Yes.
What do you think of the script he's delivered here?
I think it's brilliant. I think I'm trying to think of the timeline now in terms of there was that movie, wasn't there? The Boat That Rocked?
Yes.
And I can't remember whether this was before or after that.
I'm not sure. I know that there was another fourth Doctor Big Finish years later that used pirate radio and, spoilers, the Vardans, which was not as successful. But, I mean, what a fantastic setting for a story, especially one about sound. Again, it's the base under siege, much like the last one. It's a bunch of people isolated away from everywhere else, slowly being picked off one by one by some unseen terror.
And the fact that it's the audio within the story that is the, finger quotes, big bad.
Yes.
I think it's such a clever idea, and the way that it's used to further the plot and enhance the atmosphere as you're listening is really effective.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the Hush, which is the monster. So they feed on sound. They go looking for sound, and they've been there if there's an absence of sound. So it's sort of an audio version of the Vashta Narada. But it works so well.
Yeah.
And there's that line in there, the universe is a very loud place and I'm going to bring so much silence. And it does really cool things because much like the Vashta Narada, or indeed the angels in Flesh and Stone, it can take on the voices of the people that it's consuming.
Yeah, including the Doctor.
And you get these lovely little moments where you're like, has that person been taken over? You know, and it's coming, and sometimes it wrong foots you. I'm thinking they use Jasper's voice. He's talking away, putting on vinyls, and then you realise Jasper's dead, essentially, and the voice goes, I don't know where I am, it's so dark, which is very Silence in the Library.
It's quite a crafty, a scheming villain as well, because it's using the humans to try and manoeuvre them into releasing it back into the universe.
Yes.
Because while it's on the ship, it's trapped.
Yeah.
Because their transmitter has gone down and it's relying on the transmitter to work to be able to escape again.
Yeah.
So it's using all these very nefarious means to try and fool them into setting it back up again.
Yes, and then ultimately keeping the Doctor distracted and going out there, because ultimately the big twist is at the end we discover that Layla has potentially been taken over all the time, which is a cool little twist that I didn't see coming. But
Yeah.
there's that moment earlier on where Layla suddenly gets less interested in the engine room and the darkness, and you think, oh, she's being taken over, but she isn't. And the Doctor bumps into things and she doesn't, and you're thinking, oh, she's definitely gone, but she hasn't gone. And when you get to the end, you realise, oh, it's because she was the creature. But then at that moment where you think she's going to go, the Doctor suddenly realises he's not in the generator room and he's in the dark place, and the creature has taken him over. Which I just think, it's just classic bits of Doctor Who writing. Very clever, scary, eerie, great atmosphere again.
Very claustrophobic, which is, I think is quite hard to do with audio, but
Yes.
it works really well.
It's very easy for claustrophobic to come across as it's a small cast on audio, but it's great stuff. I have an issue with the audiobook format, actually. Like, it has to be a really good audiobook to keep me listening. If it's with full cast audio plays, I'm fine, but if it's one voice constantly, I do find that if my mind wanders for a little bit, I've lost where I am, and then I'm just gone from it. But this kept me hooked all the way. But it's also very cleverly, he's writing for a wider audience than Big Finish, so it's an accessible story. You don't need to know much about Doctor Who. And even things like he explains what the psychic paper is and the sonic screwdriver, which Big Finish wouldn't do that. They just go, Doctor Who fans are buying this.
You can imagine a casual fan just scrolling through Audible and looking at what's new and seeing that and thinking, oh, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
And giving it a go.
I've got a vague memory of these much later on being given away with the Daily Mail.
Oh, dear.
I know. On CD, but there was like a run of Doctor Who audios, the BBC ones, given away with the Daily Mail, and I think this was one of them. As well as being scary, I think it's very funny. Like, I laughed out loud, and I think it captures the zinginess and quickness of the Tennant era.
Very much.
There's
so.
that point where, Layla goes, "What's space like?" And he goes, the Doctor goes, "Ever been to Fritton? It's almost completely unlike Fritton." And then he goes, do you cook in space?" And he goes, "I considered telling her a long story about Fanny Craddock's lemon drizzle." And just silly little lines like that really make you know that you're listening to the same thing.
It's just peppered with, like you say, I mean, it sums up Doctor Who so well.
Yeah.
Because to me, Doctor Who works at its best when it's equal parts scary and funny.
Yes, and this nails it both. I mean, another criticism that could possibly be levied at Night Thoughts is that it's a scary atmospheric thing, but there isn't much humour to it.
Not a lot, no.
I think that's the thing that... The levity is the thing that makes Doctor Who slightly more family-friendly than a lot of other shows. There will be jokes, and that... something ridiculous will happen from a couple of times a story. I think that's what stops it from being too scary for kids all the time.
Yeah, my son is coming up to 9 years old and he's quite sensitive, so I've shown him little bits of Doctor Who, the old stuff.
Yeah.
And he's quite liked it, but I'm not gonna sort of try and push him into watching everything, because I think that would be a big mistake. And something like Night Thoughts, Jeebus, that would completely freak him out. So yeah, that one's definitely off the table for a while.
I remember being terrified by it. It's a cliche, but it's not hiding behind the sofa cliche, but I saw my first bit of Doctor Who was the last season of Classic Who going out.
Okay.
And I watched Battlefield, fine, and then we got to the Curse of Fenric. I had to stop watching the last episode because as a 7-year-old, it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember my mom watching it because she wanted to see how it ended, and me watching through a crack in the door, which is another classic cliche.
Yeah. I would start off on the floor,
Yeah.
sat on the floor right in front of the telly, and then I'd gradually start edging my way back towards the sofa where my parents were, and back, and by the end I'd be sat up there with a cushion, very firmly hanging on to it to make sure that I wasn't going to get attacked by whatever was on the screen.
I think this version that we get here, it's funny, it's scary, it's accessible. As you said, anybody skipping along on Audible or your average Daily Mail reader, shame on you, could pick it up and go, oh, I like a bit of Doctor Who, listen to it and not feel overwhelmed. It's short enough, the characters are well formed, it's got David Tennant. It's like, if I had to recommend a bit of Doctor Who spin-off media for someone who wasn't that into the show, or who was into the show but not a die-hard fan, it would be something like this over a Big Finish, I think.
I think the sound design on this is just, it really deserves to get some sort of award because they do such a great job. And if you're listening on headphones, it makes
Yeah.
all the difference. And it's still entertaining when you're listening through speakers, but you get immersed in it through having the headphones on. It really transports you.
It's a sparse sound design, but done like cleverly. And I would say in other audios, the sparseness of sound would probably put me off slightly. But because this is a creature that consumes sounds, you're just, as you say, you're completely immersed in this terrifying world. And even the way it deals with the theme tune, where, you know, you get the 10th Doctor theme tune, and then rather than it finishing normally, it kind of does that of like a tape unwinding, which is just a lovely little touch, have to say. And I got this for both of them. I bloody love that theme tune. That 10th Doctor version is just such a...
Yes.
It just says adventure, exciting Saturday tea times. I haven't watched any Tennant in a while, so I got quite nostalgic listening to that theme tune.
Yeah, I haven't either.
With Night Thoughts, I got it as well with the McCoy era as well, because those are, I guess they're kind of my two eras, if you can have two. The one is the show coming back, and one is when I was much younger. And that McCoy era to me, so that theme on Night Thoughts and everything else, that one doesn't say adventure, that says be shit scared to me. Which, you know, I know people take issues with it, but that's something that I associated my childhood with being terrified.
It's a kind of muscle memory, isn't it? You're kind of taken back to that time as a kid where as soon as you hear the music, the hairs on the back of your neck go up and you're like, okay, get ready. This is going to be scary.
Exactly that. So, in this story, there are a couple of different characters, but the main guest character, and it's a bit hard to... We've talked about Tennant's performance of this character. So, Layla is one of those classic could-have-been companions. How do you feel about her character and how she's presented in the story?
Yeah, she just comes across really well. I was getting sort of like a Scouse Linda with a Y vibe from her.
It's exactly that sort of thing. And
yeah, kind of every woman, but just a really likeable character. You think, oh God, she'd be great.
It's very clever that it sets her up as that sort of could-have-been companion, and then right at the end, rather than just killing her off, you realise actually she's been the creature all along, and she wants to be that companion so she can go out into time and space with the Doctor. It's just another lovely little twist. We've got another couple of characters in there. Wow. So we've got Tomo and Jasper are the other two. They both get consumed fairly quickly by the creature. And I'm thinking of this moment.
They do.
One of them has been bumped off. I think it was Tomo. And they realise they just need to stay up all night on this ship listening to music, so they know that if the music stops, then the creature's started to consume it, and slowly the creature works its way in, and by 3 a.m. the music stops and she needs the toilet and he wants a cup of tea, and you can hear every rattle of the boat as the records play and the storms lash, and you can just see this story floating on seas. It's also one that would make a cracking full cast audio as well, but you could see this working as a TV episode as well. It's something that's such a simple but clever idea. I think you could really transport this into lots of different media. I completely agree, and I'm going to bang that drum for James Goss to get a Doctor Who story on TV.
Definitely.
Let's talk a little bit more about David Tennant's 10th Doctor here. So this is the post-Journey's End Doctor, but for me, it's the best version of the post-Journey's End Doctor that we get.
Yeah, Tennant is one of those Doctors that you can really use him however you want, and he just always delivers. He could be on his own or, rocking up with a companion. I think he's such a strong portrayal of the Doctor, and there's a reason why he comes out as the favourite for a lot of people in the new series. He's got that star quality. Yeah, completely. It's a cliche to say again, but he is the new series Tom Baker, and I think that is earned that way. That, as you say, even the most generic of Doctor Who story you could put him in, he can still be the best thing in it. Yeah, and I think for some people who've taken on the part, it's been a bit of an albatross, and they've not really gone on to do the greatest work afterwards. But I think he's one of the few that have really still worked on really high quality stuff after he's left the role. Yes, I mean he's gone on to be a bigger star almost, because he went to the States and did he did like Jessica Jones and stuff like that. So and then Good Omens and stuff. So he became
a real international brand in the way that's, international brand's a horrible word, but, an international name.
Well, as we're recording this, the BBC have just put out the first couple of episodes of Inside Man, which is a Stephen Moffat drama programme, and he features very prominently in it.
So Tennant, as I said, it's post Journey's End Tennant, and they really get the sort of tragedy of the Doctor losing his friends, but without him being a bit of a mopey git that he sort of becomes towards the end. And there's that moment where the Doctor name drops, and Layla says, "That's just name dropping. Don't you have any actual friends?" And he goes, "Oh, there's been friends I travel with, but not a good time recently." And she goes, "Oh, did they die?" And then the narration just goes, he basically looks solemnly to the ground. Yeah. I just think it's the subtlety of those moments compared to some of the more emo aspects of the new series that I really enjoyed in this.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there anything else about Dead Air you particularly want to say?
I just think it's a really entertaining, very compact listen. So if you're not someone who is excited about the idea of listening to like a 50-hour audiobook, this is for you, because it's just a fraction over an hour. It works in the same format as a new series story.
Yeah.
It's a two-parter with a cliffhanger. And I think if you are a fan of David Tennant and you like his portrayal of the Doctor and you want something that's a bit spooky for a Halloween evening, this is the story for you.
I completely agree. It's got an absolute cracking pace to it, a cracking atmosphere. Tennant is on fine form doing his 10th Doctor and all the other characters. It's no mean feat to kind of do 3 or 4 different characters and make them sound different and not sound ridiculous. But he manages it. I just have to ask, is it a clanger or a banger? I think I know the answer.
No, it's a banger. Of course it's a banger.
It is a banger. So there we go.
Too hot for TV.
That's 2 scary Doctor Who stories. I guess my question to wrap this up is, what makes a good scary Doctor Who story?
I think, as I said before, it's that combination. If it's just all-out horror, which I suppose you could drop Night Thoughts into that particular kind of bag, perhaps it doesn't work on every level. But I think just that combination of the adventure and the horror and the comedy just all coming together seamlessly, I think that really nails it. And I think that's where Dead Air is, I think, a slightly better story all round.
I think for me, and to wheel out another cliche, but it is these everyday things made scary, from a creepy doll, a child, or sound in Dead Air's case.
Yeah.
And I also think it's about the Doctor selling the scariness, and both of the Doctors we've looked at today have a real way of selling the kind of gravity of the situation and showing it's scary, but they're absolutely in control at the same time. And I think both of those stories could absolutely form part of their respective eras on television, and they'd be revered as the scary one from whatever season they were in. So there we go, 2 scary Doctor Who stories, suitable for a Halloween or any dark night you may choose to listen to them. So, Mark, where can people find you on the internet, should they wish to?
If you're wanting to listen to the podcasts, we have 2 shows. There's Nerdology UK, which is available through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the usual places. And likewise, All of Time and Space, or AOTAS, as all the cool kids call it, is available through all those same places. I think we have our anchor pages, anchor.fm/All of Time and Space, and there's links there for pretty much any podcast app going.
Fantastic.
So we would love to have you along, and you'll be joining us for an episode in the not too distant future.
Yes, I believe I am.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
No worries. Next time on the podcast, I have got a regular of this podcast. Joining me from On the Time Lash is Mark Donaldson, another Mark.
Oh, he's a good lad.
He is a good lad. We're not doing 2 Doctor Who stories. We're not doing 3. We're doing 4.
Holy crap on a stick.
I know. What a feat we're undertaking. But there is method to our madness. It's November. It's the month of Doctor Who. It's anniversary specials. So what we're going to do the script for the unmade 30th anniversary special, The Dark Dimensions, and see whether that was any good. And then we're tying it up with 3 one-shot DWM comic strips that all celebrate Doctor Who in some way. So we're doing Time and Time Again, Happy Death Day, and TV Action. So it is 4 stories, but only one of them is actually a long story and the others are fairly short. So we shouldn't ramble on for 9 hours.
Well, that sounds like a slice of fried gold.
We can only hope, we can only hope. But until then, I've been Dylan.
And I've been Mark.
And this has been Doctor Who Too Hot for TV. So we're sat here on the eve of Jodie Whittaker's final episode. We're going to be watching it in about 3 hours' time, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
What are your predictions?
I think I don't have any expectations. I don't want them to be too high, but they're not that low. I've overall enjoyed the Chibnall era, but I don't think it's mind-blowingly good.
Okay.
So I don't. It's very odd considering the last time we had such a big anniversary celebration story. It was Day of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, my expectations for that were too high. And for this, I have no expectations at all.
Oh, that's good. Things can only improve. If you had to predict 3 things that will happen, and as this goes out, you'll get a if you get them wrong.
Okay. I think the old Doctors will be in it in some kind of a weird cameo, which might not even work, but they'll be there. I think Jodie Whittaker will get a very good send-off. And it will be very sad in terms of like her final speech and how she dies. I think that will be quite strong. What I would like, but I don't know if they'll do it, would be for the Doctor and Yaz to kiss. But I don't know if it will happen or not.
Yeah. Do you think we might get like a weird meta crisis 10th, 13th Doctor situation where they send Yaz off with a clone of?
Oh, that'd be weird.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird last time.
Yeah. No, it's odd. But and my prediction for the end is that Ncuti Gatwa will appear for a very split moment before quickly changing into David Tennant.
Okay.
Because it's already been publicly announced that David Tennant is coming back.
Yeah.
So I think they would do something to upend that a bit, and we'll see a brief glimpse of Ncuti, and then he'll disappear.
My 3 predictions are that the Timeless Child story will not be fully resolved.
Yeah.
Somebody will die, but it'll be like a Kate Stewart or a Vinda rather than Yaz or and that it'll be an open-ended we won't see who Jodie turns into, but David Tennant will appear some way, somehow. Those are my 3 predictions. But we're not here to talk about the television series Doctor Who, are we? What are we talking about today, Jack?
We're talking about Series 1 of Dalek Empire.
From The Big Finish.
Doctor Who. Too hot for TV.